Lisa Parker. This is the Wild and Scenic Film Festival, and it is the largest environmental film festival of its kind. It happens right here in downtown Nevada City in the Sierras, and also Grass Valley, California. It's been an extraordinary day, really, the individuals that we've connected with and the filmmakers. I'm excited here to have Ryan Killackey with us, and the film is called Yasuni, Man. And first, welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. I learned last night that Ryan was a guide in the Amazon, and that's how you got dialed into this film.
Yeah.
Right? Are you going to do anything else like that again? Like as far as being a guide and...
Oh, no.
No, it's too much.
Hope I never have to do that again.
Really? We're going to talk about that. Okay. Tell us about the film.
Yasuni Man is a feature-length documentary about a conflict taking place in the Ecuadorian Amazon between biodiversity and human rights, which has been pitted against natural resource exploitation. Yasuni is the world's most biodiverse forest and home of the Waorani people. And inside of this forest live Ecuador's last remaining clans that live in voluntary isolation, and they aggressively defend their territory from outsiders. And below this biosphere is Ecuador's largest untapped oil reserves.
Wow. So, what is some of the action that they're taking as a result?
Who's taking the government or the indigenous people?
The indigenous people.
Lots of spearings by the people living in voluntary isolation as the Taromenani and Tagaeri. They'll, from time to time, spear an oil worker, spear a Waorani, spear a colonist. So you've got a fair amount of bloodshed going on inside of this biosphere. So yeah, it's kind of a tough conflict, that is exacerbated by the exploration of oil.
How much have you seen change, Ryan, in just I know this is something that you've been very connected to over the last decade or so. So just to give people a frame of reference of how significant this is and the drastic changes that are happening in that area.
Yeah, so when I first moved to Ecuador in 2005, you used to take a dirt road for about 15 hours into the Amazon, and you got to this kind of dirty oil town. And you got into a boat, and then you'd go downriver for several hours to the ecotourism lodge that I was working at. And just 4 years later, I came back, and the development of the country had changed quite drastically. All of the roads in the Amazon were paved. There were new bridges going into more pristine and isolated parts of the forest. So the development of the Amazonian region of all of the Amazon, but specifically in Ecuador, is growing much more rapid as the years go on, and this is from development of oil roads, and you've got colonization, but now you also have things like wide-scale cattle grazing. Palm oil plantations are probably coming, and a lot more new developments such as new mines coming for like gold mines and other precious metals and minerals. So
right. Tell us about some of the takeaways, Ryan, of what the people who are watching this in like their armchair travel, for example, and hearing this particular story. What are some of the key actions that they can take, and how to support the indigenous people there, how to support the forest? I know we hear a lot about the deforestation, for example, of the Amazon, and I know for some it might seem like this faraway distant thing, but it really has a direct impact.
It does, yeah. I would say probably the most important thing to know right now, especially the exciting thing for me, is this film festival is in California, and it winds up that about 70% of the oil that comes out of this region of Ecuador is actually destined for California in specific. So Californians technically are the number one contributors to the destruction of this part of the Amazon. So if you can educate yourself better about knowing where your petroleum is coming from, you can look at your own impact as well. Every day you wake up and look in the mirror and maybe say, what can I do better to potentially change the course of this area? It's tough though, because it is very isolated and removed from most people's lives, and unfortunately we're dependent on oil.
I know, I was going to ask you, even knowing, so like if California is 60% of the consumers of that, and knowing where petroleum comes from, I mean, like, are there even any gas, like when you go to the gas station, for example, are there even any gas companies where, I mean, as far as even if you're driving a car and it's even electricity takes oil. So
yeah, everything
you know what I mean?
takes some kind of resource.
As far as being mindful of what to do or not.
I think probably the biggest thing that people can do if they want to become active, aside from paying attention to your own personal footprint, is this NGO by the name of Amazon Watch. It's a Bay Area organization. They do have a campaign with several other NGOs that is to keep the oil in the ground. And the world really shouldn't be extracting oil from these megadiverse regions. And so it's important to keep it in the ground. And they created a campaign called End Amazon Crude. So you can go to endamazoncrude.org. I believe it's .org or .com, but check it out. That's a great place to be heavily informed. Another thing to do is obviously follow us on social media, Yasuni Man, which gives you all of the other resources that you can look further into this issue.
What for you was the turning point, Ryan, when you were like, I need to tell the story?
I had been living in the Amazon for about a year at this point, and I went into Yasuni for the first time. And you can't get access to Yasuni without being a biologist, working for an oil company, or having the Waorani take you in directly into their territory. Sorry, what was the question? Can you take me back to it?
Well, just you getting connected into this in the moment you were like, I need to do something about it.
Yeah, so I have these connections, with biologists to actually go into Yasuni for the first time. And I went on into this region through doing this frog research project to see the impacts of the oil roads and the industry on amphibian populations. But this is when I actually got to go into many Waorani communities for the first time, and I actually saw firsthand of how these industries were impacting the indigenous people as well as the environment that they're reliant upon. And I went into one of the communities and I saw rampant drug use, rampant alcoholism, tons of bushmeat hunting, lots of deforestation, and I was like, this is a really, really powerful story that Americans have actually been connected to for 60, 70 years now. So I knew that I had a good story, but then the question was, well, how do I really get into this area? And it took several more years. It was 4 years later that I was actually invited in at the end of 2009.
Was that difficult, even, right, with the camera and?
Going into the Amazon is, every filmmaker will tell you it's extremely difficult. It's hot, it's humid, it's rainy, parasitites, all the elements, dangerous animals.
Having the agreement, right? Mm-hmm. With the approval, I guess, I'm thinking, to be able to document people, the indigenous people there, right?
They wouldn't have been possible if they didn't want me there. So they asked me, through a colleague of mine, I was invited in to go see if it was something that we might want to collaborate on, because I had been so passionate about this story for a long time, and now I finally had access to it.
Right.
So
that's incredible, Ryan. And my last question is, so the theme this year is Groundswell, with, Groundswell is the theme for Wild and Scenic. Mm-hmm. So how does that relate to you on a personal level, especially this year? What does that mean?
Yeah, I think Groundswell is, to have people rise up, ultimately from the bottom and try to make some kind of positive change and impact, I'm an independent filmmaker, and, I can't do everything on my own, and I'm trying to get my message out there as best as I can. So I think it's, the connectivity of people to help bring these stories to an audience and, make a positive impact collectively.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan, for being here. And
thank you for having me.
The film is Yasuni Man, and it's screened.
It's screened twice. We're done.
We got standing ovation, so who knows? It might even get some awards.
Hopefully.
We'll see. That's more to come. It could be screening again.
Yeah,
we'll find out. I'm Elisa Parker. It is the Wild and Scenic Film Festival. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be back in a bit.